The betrayal hits me again as I watch Sarah hand over my $15,000 performance bonus check to Derek at the marina, my wife of 8 years funding her lover's dream boat with money I bled for. The salty ocean breeze carries the sound of seagulls and diesel engines, but all I hear is the crushing weight of deception. My hands tremble as I photograph them from behind a shipping container, watching her laugh at something he whispers. She thinks I'm still at the office, grinding through another 14-hour day. But I'm here, reborn into a man who finally sees the truth. The metallic taste of rage fills my mouth as I pull out my phone to make a very important call to the Coast Guard registration office. The hum of the fluorescent lights above my cubicle is usually a monotonous drone, but tonight it sounds like a triumphant chorus. It's 8 p.m., and the office is mostly empty. The usual symphony of clicking keyboards and ringing phones reduced to a whisper. The lingering scent of stale coffee hangs in the air, a testament to another long day, another battle won. I lean back in my chair, the cheap fabric groaning under my weight, and look at the email from Janet, my supervisor, for the 10th time. Marcus, your Q3 performance has been outstanding. The Hartwell Industries account is a game changer. We're authorizing a $15,000 performance bonus, effective immediately. Well deserved. $15,000. I'd chased the Hartwell account for 6 relentless months. 18-hour days became the norm. Dinners with Sarah were replaced by lukewarm takeout eaten over spreadsheets. Weekends blurred into weekdays, fueled by caffeine and the burning desire to prove myself. For years, I'd been the reliable workhorse, consistently delivering but always overlooked when promotions or significant opportunities came around. This bonus, this account, it was vindication. Janet had stopped by earlier, her usually stern face softened by a rare smile. "You set the bar high with this one, Marcus," she'd said, her voice echoing slightly in the emptying office. "The partners are impressed. This bonus reflects that. Don't spend it all in one place." I'd just grinned, the exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "No promises, Janet." We both knew I was joking. Every penny of this bonus was already earmarked. A new roof for the house, a surprise anniversary trip for Sarah, maybe the Caribbean, somewhere she'd always dreamed of. 8 years. 8 years of her supporting my crazy hours, understanding my drive, being my rock. This was for us. The truth is, landing Hartwell was more than just work. It was a strategic campaign. I'd spent weeks analyzing their financials, their market position, their pain points. I didn't just pitch them a service. I pitched them a solution so tailored, so intricate, they couldn't refuse. I'd leveraged every contact, called in every favor, and anticipated every objection. My final presentation wasn't just a proposal, it was a goddamn masterpiece of quiet negotiation, securing terms that were incredibly favorable for my company and, by extension, for me. That bonus wasn't just a reward, it was a direct result of me outmaneuvering, outthinking, and outworking everyone else. It felt good. No, it felt incredible. I felt a surge of triumph, a lightness I hadn't experienced in years. This was it, the turning point. I shut down my computer, the screen going dark like a curtain falling on a successful play. The office suddenly felt too small, too confining for the celebratory energy coursing through me. I wanted to share the news, to see Sarah's face light up. I imagined her smile, the way her eyes crinkled at the corners when she was truly happy. This bonus wasn't just money, it was a symbol of a brighter future, a future I was building for us. The anticipation of her reaction made my steps lighter as I walked to the elevator, the bonus confirmation email practically burning a hole in my pocket. I decided to leave work a little earlier than my already extended new normal. The thought of surprising Sarah was too good to resist. I pictured it. Walk in, wave the bonus letter, sweep her into my arms, and talk about all the things we could finally do. Maybe we'd open that bottle of champagne we'd been saving since our 5th anniversary, the one tucked away in the back of the fridge for a truly special occasion. This qualified. The drive home was a blur of happy plans. I replayed the Hartwell negotiations in my head, savoring the little victories, the subtle power moves that had led to this moment. I was so caught up in my own success, my own narrative of triumph, that I almost missed the unfamiliar car parked a block down from our house. A beat-up Ford pickup, not the kind of vehicle you usually saw in our quiet suburban neighborhood. I frowned, a flicker of unease, but dismissed it. Probably a contractor working late at Mrs. Henderson's. I pulled into our driveway, the gravel crunching under the tires. The house was dark, which was unusual. Sarah usually had lights on, music playing softly. I let myself in, the silence amplifying the slight thud of the door closing behind me. "Sarah?" I called out, my voice sounding louder than intended in the stillness. No answer. A knot began to form in my stomach. I walked through the downstairs rooms, kitchen, living room, dining room, all empty. Then I heard it. A low murmur from upstairs. Our bedroom. And laughter. Sarah's laughter, but different. Nervous, almost breathless. My heart started to pound. I told myself I was being ridiculous. She was probably on the phone with her sister or a friend, but the knot in my stomach tightened. I had intended to stride up the stairs, burst into the bedroom with my news. Instead, I found myself tiptoeing, my shoes suddenly feeling like lead weights. As I reached the top of the stairs, her voice became clearer, filtering through the slightly ajar bedroom door. "Derek, baby, I've got the money," she was saying, her voice a low, conspiratorial whisper. "We can finally get your boat, yes, the full amount. He got that bonus he was hoping for." Derek. The name slammed into me like a physical blow. I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. The floorboards creaked almost imperceptibly beneath my feet, but it sounded like a gunshot in the sudden, roaring silence of my mind. His boat? My bonus? "I'll tell him I'm going to my sister's for the weekend," she continued, that nervous laugh bubbling up again. "We can take it out for its first spin, just you and me." I couldn't breathe. My lungs felt like they were collapsing. My wedding ring, a simple gold band I hadn't taken off in 8 years, suddenly felt like it was searing my skin, a brand of my own stupidity. I'd been so focused on my success, so wrapped up in providing for us, that I hadn't seen what was happening right under my nose. The long hours, the missed dinners, they hadn't just been sacrifices for our future. They'd been an opportunity for her. I wanted to kick the door in, to scream, to demand answers. But a cold, sharp clarity cut through the initial shock. No, not yet. I needed to understand. I needed to know everything. With a monumental effort, I forced myself to turn, to creep back down the stairs, each step a descent into a new, unwelcome reality. I pretended to leave for work again, starting my car, driving around the block, the engine's roar a pathetic contrast to the storm brewing inside me. Then I circled back, parking where I'd seen the pickup, and watched my own house, a stranger in my own life. The blue glow of Sarah's laptop screen was the only light in our darkened living room. It was well past midnight. I'd waited until I was sure she was asleep, her soft snores a grotesque counterpoint to the turmoil churning within me. My hands were shaking as I lifted the laptop lid. I knew her password, our anniversary. The irony was a bitter pill. I started with her email. It didn't take long. A folder, innocuously labeled Weekend Plans, was filled with messages. Not to her sister, but to an email address I didn't recognize. Captain Derek, 88. My blood ran cold. I clicked open the first email, then the next, and the next. Months of correspondence, intimate messages, sickeningly sweet, filled with "I miss yous" and "can't wait to be with yous." Interspersed were emails about a boat, a specific boat, a 32-foot cabin cruiser, a 1998 Sea Ray Sundancer. There were links to listings, discussions about features, excited exclamations about finding the one. Then came the photos. Sarah and some guy. Derek, I presumed. At boat shows, his arm draped casually around her shoulder, both of them grinning like fools. My wife, the woman I loved, beaming at another man as they planned a future I clearly wasn't a part of. There were PDFs, financing pre-approvals, in his name but contingent on a hefty down payment, insurance quotes, even a scanned copy of a purchase agreement, waiting for signatures and funds. The timestamps on the emails were damning. This had been going on for at least 3 months, exactly when I'd started the grueling Hartwell push. While I was at the office, breaking my back, believing I was building a better life for us, she was building a new life with someone else, funded by my sweat and sacrifice. The realization was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. My bonus, my $15,000. It wasn't for our roof or our anniversary trip. It was for his boat. A cold rage, sharp and focused, began to replace the sickening shock. This wasn't just an affair. This was a calculated betrayal, a theft. I started taking screenshots. Every email, every photo, every document. I saved them to a secure cloud drive, then to a thumb drive I kept hidden in my office desk. Evidence. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew I needed proof. The digital trail was a neon sign pointing to her deception, and I was going to follow it wherever it led. The last email I found was sent just that afternoon, shortly after she must have ended her call with Derek. It was to him. Subject: "It's a go." The body of the email was short. "Got the bonus confirmed. See you tomorrow at the bank, then the marina. Our dream is finally happening. Love, S." Tomorrow. It was all happening tomorrow. My dream, twisted into their reality. As I closed the laptop, the house was silent again, save for Sarah's oblivious breathing from the room above. But nothing was the same. The man who had walked into this house earlier, full of triumph and love, was gone. In his place was someone else, someone colder, harder, someone who now knew the truth, and someone who was starting to form a plan. The next morning I went through the motions: shower, shave, dress for work. Sarah was chirpy, overly affectionate, asking about my day ahead, if I'd heard anything about the Hartwell bonus yet. I played along, a knot of ice in my gut. "Still waiting to hear," I lied, the words tasting like ash. "Probably get an email later today." "Oh, well, I'm sure it'll be great news, honey," she said, kissing me a little too brightly. "You've worked so hard." She told me she was heading to her sister's for a long spa day, then staying overnight. "Girl time, you know?" "Sounds nice," I managed, my voice betraying nothing. "Have fun." As soon as she left, I called Tom, an old college buddy who was now a branch manager at First National, the bank where my company direct deposited our paychecks, bonus checks included. "Tom, I need a favor, a big one, and it needs to stay strictly between us." I explained vaguely that I suspected some financial irregularities involving my upcoming bonus and needed to know if and when the check was cashed, and by whom. Tom, ever loyal and discreet, promised to keep an eye out and text me. I drove to my office, but I didn't go in. I parked a street over, waiting. Around 10:30 a.m., my phone buzzed. "Tom." "Marcus, Sarah just came in. Cashed a check. Company payroll for $15K. Took it all in cash. Seemed anxious. Something you need me to do?" My blood ran cold. Cash. Untraceable. Easy to hand over. "No, Tom, thanks. You've done more than enough. I owe you." I started my car. The squeak of the leather seats a small, protesting sound in the charged silence. I knew Sarah's usual route to her sister's didn't pass anywhere near First National. She was heading somewhere else. I drove towards the bank, and sure enough, I spotted her car pulling out of the parking lot. I fell in behind her, keeping a safe distance. She wasn't heading towards her sister's. She was heading east, towards the coast, towards Clearwater. The smell of salt water, usually a scent I associated with relaxation and weekends, now filled me with a grim certainty. Clearwater Marina, that had to be it. I followed her for nearly an hour, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. She drove carefully, never speeding, occasionally glancing in her rearview mirror. But she wasn't looking for me. She was just another driver on her way to betray her husband. As we neared the marina, I hung further back. She pulled into the main parking lot. I continued past, finding a spot behind a dilapidated bait and tackle shop, the building offering a good vantage point of the marina entrance and the docks beyond, but keeping my car out of direct sight. I grabbed the binoculars I kept in the glove compartment for birdwatching, another hobby Sarah had once shared, then abandoned. The irony wasn't lost on me. Through the lenses, I saw her get out of her car, a large tote bag clutched in her hand. The cash, no doubt. She walked quickly, nervously, towards the slips, and there, waiting for her at slip 47, was a man. Tall, sandy blonde hair, a cocky grin that I instantly loathed. Derek. He greeted her with a hug that was far too familiar, a kiss that was far too intimate. My stomach churned. I raised my phone, the telephoto lens I'd attached suddenly feeling like a weapon. I started recording, documenting every damning moment. The sun beat down on the marina, reflecting off the water and the polished hulls of the boats. Seagulls cried overhead, a mournful sound. From my vantage point, I watched Sarah and Derek. He was animated, pointing towards a sleek, if slightly dated, 32-foot Sea Ray Sundancer moored in slip 47. It was a nice boat, I had to admit. Expensive? Or at least it would have been, if he were the one actually paying for it. Sarah handed him the tote bag. I zoomed in with my phone, capturing Derek pulling out stacks of cash, hundreds and fifties. He counted it quickly, professionally, a hungry look in his eyes. The sound of the money being thumbed through, even from this distance, felt like a personal violation. My money, my sweat, my bonus. A portly man in a faded polo shirt, presumably the boat dealer or owner, emerged from the cabin of the Sea Ray. He carried a clipboard and a pen. Papers were produced. Sarah stood by, fidgeting, while Derek leaned over the documents, nodding, occasionally asking a question. I could see him gesturing expansively, already acting like he owned the place, like he was some kind of big shot. The dealer pointed to a line on the paper, and Derek signed with a flourish. Then, to my horror, Sarah co-signed something. What was she signing? Was she making herself liable for this? The implications made me sick. I adjusted my phone, trying to get clearer audio. The distance was a challenge, but the marina was relatively quiet, save for the lapping of water and the distant hum of engines. I could make out snippets of their conversation. "Final payment, as agreed," the dealer was saying. Derek clapped him on the back. "She's a beauty. Knew she was the one." Then Derek's voice, clear and smug, carried across the water. "This is perfect, babe. Our new life starts now." He kissed Sarah again, a possessive, triumphant kiss. The dealer handed over a set of keys and a small packet of documents, the registration, I assumed, and the bill of sale. Derek pocketed them with a self-satisfied smirk. They shook hands, all smiles. Sarah looked relieved, almost giddy. My Sarah, the woman who'd once cried because I'd forgotten our 3-month dating anniversary, was now beaming as she helped her lover buy a boat with my money. The betrayal was a fresh wound, deeper and more painful than I could have imagined. I kept recording, my hand steady despite the tremor of rage that coursed through me. I documented the handshake, the exchange of keys, Derek and Sarah climbing aboard their new boat, laughing. He ran a hand possessively along the railing, then pulled her close. The scene was almost idyllic, if you didn't know the rotten truth beneath it. My quiet power move was in that recording, in the clarity of the images, the snippets of damning audio. They thought they were being clever, discreet. They had no idea they were starring in my private documentary of their deceit. After about 20 minutes of them fawning over the boat, opening hatches, and imagining their illicit weekends, the dealer disembarked and headed towards the marina office. Derek and Sarah stayed on board, wrapped up in their own little world. This was my chance. I stopped recording, took a deep breath, and got out of my car. I walked casually towards the marina office, as if I were just another prospective boat buyer. I needed to know more. I needed to understand the full scope of this. The dealer was inside, chatting with a woman behind the counter. I waited until he was done, then approached him. "Excuse me?" I said, affecting a friendly, inquisitive tone. I couldn't help but admire that Sea Ray Sundancer at Slip 47. "Is that for sale?" The dealer, a man named Sal, puffed up a bit. "Just sold it, matter of fact. Nice couple, real excited." "Ah, shame. She's a beaut," I said, feigning disappointment. "Mind if I ask what something like that goes for? Just curious for future reference." Sal, happy to talk about a successful sale, named a price. $23,000. They got a good deal. Paid a good chunk in cash today, 15. He winked. The rest he's got on a note with the previous owner, about 8,000 still due. My mind raced. So my $15,000 wasn't even the full price. Derek was still on the hook for more. Interesting. "So the gentleman, Derek, he's financing the rest?" I asked casually. Sal nodded. "Yeah, seems like a decent fella. Told me he's a contractor, business is booming. Said he's about to come into some more money soon, pay it off quick." I felt a metallic taste in my mouth, adrenaline, rage. "More money?" Sal leaned in conspiratorially. "Yeah, his, wife, Sarah, she mentioned her husband. Not Derek, her actual husband, I guess, is up for a big promotion. Another bonus coming. Said Derek's planning to get divorced once he's, financially set. Wants to make sure his current wife doesn't get her hands on his new assets." Sal chuckled, oblivious to the storm gathering in my eyes. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't just about an affair and a boat. This was a long-term con. My bonus was just the down payment. They were counting on my future earnings, my promotion, to fund their life together. Sarah wasn't just cheating on me. She was systematically defrauding me, plotting to drain me dry before casting me aside. And Derek wasn't just an opportunistic lover. He was a parasite, planning to bleed me financially through Sarah. He was even trying to shield my money, funneled through Sarah from his own wife in his own divorce. The audacity was breathtaking. "Thanks for the info, Sal," I said, my voice tight. "Appreciate it." I walked away, my mind a whirlwind. I had the recording. I had Sal's unwitting testimony. I had the knowledge of the outstanding $8,000. And I had the name of the previous owner, gleaned from a glimpse of the paperwork on Sal's clipboard when he'd been talking. Derek and Sarah were still on the boat, laughing, oblivious. They thought they'd won. They had no idea the game was just beginning. As I walked back to my car, a new resolve hardened within me. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about justice. and I was going to get it. My quiet power move was approaching Sal, transforming myself from a passive observer into an active investigator, gathering the threads of their deceit. The mini cliffhanger was the stunning revelation of Derek's own marriage and their long-term financial con against me. They thought they were celebrating a heist. They didn't realize the victim was already planning to turn the tables. The tap-tap-tap of my keyboard was the only sound in my home office, a rhythmic, almost manic counterpoint to the silent fury that had become my constant companion. It was late, well past 2 a.m. Sarah was asleep upstairs, probably dreaming of ocean voyages with her lover. I, on the other hand, was wide awake, fueled by coffee and a cold, methodical rage. My business investigation skills, honed over years of corporate intelligence gathering and competitor analysis, were now focused on one man, Derek. His full name, Derek Walensky, had been easy enough to get from a stray comment Sal had made about the registration paperwork. The internet, as they say, is a treasure trove if you know where to look. I started with social media. Derek's profiles were mostly public, a monument to his own ego. Pictures of him flexing in gym mirrors, posing with borrowed luxury cars, and most tellingly, a series of photos with different women over the years, each one looking adoringly at him before disappearing from his timeline, replaced by a new conquest. Sarah wasn't on his public feed, of course. Too risky. Then I dug deeper. Public records, court documents, news archives. A grim picture began to emerge. Derek wasn't just a casual Lothario, he was a professional grifter. 2 failed marriages, both ending acrimoniously, with accusations of infidelity and financial deceit from his ex-wives. He'd declared bankruptcy once, conveniently shedding a mountain of debt. His construction business, Walensky Homes, was little more than a shell company, with a string of lawsuits from disgruntled clients for shoddy workmanship and unfinished jobs. He hadn't held steady W-2 employment in over 18 months, according to a background check service I subscribed to for work. The most damning discovery was the child support. Derek owed over $30,000 in back payments to his first wife for their 2 children. A warrant for his arrest had been issued in a neighboring county a year ago for non-payment, but he'd seemingly managed to evade it. He was a ghost when it came to official obligations, but very real when it came to leeching off others. Each new piece of information was like a nail hammered into the coffin of any lingering doubt or misplaced sentimentality I might have had about Sarah's involvement. She hadn't just fallen for a charming rogue. She'd allied herself with a career con artist, a man who left a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts in his wake. And they were planning to do the same to me. My quiet power move was this relentless, nocturnal investigation, meticulously stripping away Derek's facade to expose the rotten core beneath, all while Sarah slept soundly, oblivious to the web I was weaving. The sheer volume of his deceit was staggering. He wasn't just a bad boyfriend, he was a predator. The next morning, feigning a sudden work crisis, I drove not to my office, but to Jake Donovan's. Jake was an old friend from law school, a sharp, no-nonsense guy who'd specialized in maritime law. His office, smelling of rich leather and strong coffee, was a comforting oasis of order in my chaotic world. "Marcus, you look like hell," Jake said, ushering me in, his usually jovial face creased with concern. I didn't waste time, I laid it all out. Sarah, Derek, the boat, my bonus, the cash transaction, Sal's information about the outstanding $8,000, Derek's plan to divorce his own wife. I even showed him some of the photos and screenshots from my phone. Jake listened intently, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen against his desk. Wow. Just wow. She really picked a winner there, didn't she? Tell me I have options, Jake. This boat, he can't just sail off into the sunset with my money. Jake nodded slowly. Okay, first things first. The boat. You said your $15,000 bonus was used as the down payment? Yes, cashed by her, handed directly to the dealer in Derek's presence. And this bonus, it was earned during your marriage to Sarah? Absolutely. Hartwell account. All documented. Good. Jake leaned forward. Under Florida law, assets acquired during a marriage are generally considered marital property, regardless of whose name is on the paycheck. Your bonus, even if it was a result of your direct effort, is marital property. If she used that marital property to purchase an asset, even if Derek's name is on the initial bill of sale as the buyer because he was physically present, you have a very strong claim. A sliver of hope pierced through my anger. So I can get the boat back? Potentially, yes. Or at least its value. But there's something even better here, Marcus. You mentioned Derek hasn't properly registered it yet, and there's still $8,000 outstanding to the original owner? That's what Sal, the dealer, told me. Jake's eyes lit up. That's our leverage. Registration of a vessel is key to proving ownership for legal and operational purposes. If he hasn't completed the formal registration with the Coast Guard or the state, and especially if there's still a lien or outstanding payment to the original owner, his claim to being the clear owner is weak. You, on the other hand, have direct proof that your marital money to which you have a primary claim as the earner was used for the purchase. We can argue that you are the equitable owner. He explained the process, how boat registrations work, the documentation required by the Coast Guard, and how, with the bill of sale, even if Derek's name was on it as buyer, and clear proof of the source of funds, my bonus, I could file my own registration claim. Essentially, Marcus, Jake said, a predatory glint in his eye that I usually only saw when he was talking about a particularly juicy lawsuit. Since your money was the primary component of the purchase, and Derek hasn't perfected his ownership via full payment and proper registration, you can swoop in and register it in your name. It's bold, but it's legally sound, especially given the fraudulent context of how your money was obtained by Sarah and Derek. My mind reeled, but a plan began to solidify, audacious and empowering. What do I need to do? Jake scribbled down a list. A certified copy of my pay stub showing the bonus, a bank statement showing the funds, a sworn affidavit from me detailing the circumstances, and any documentation I had of the boat itself. Photos, the hull number, if I could get it. And that $8,000 Derek still owes? If you were to, say, contact the original owner and offer to satisfy that debt in exchange for them signing over their remaining interest to you, well, that would make your claim ironclad. I left Jake's office feeling like a general preparing for battle. He'd given me the strategy, the legal ammunition. My quiet power move was seeking expert counsel, understanding the legal framework, and transforming my raw need for justice into a precise, actionable plan. Sarah and Derek thought they were sailors. They had no idea they were about to run aground on the shores of maritime law. The next few days were a whirlwind of covert operations. I told Sarah I was swamped with the Hartwell account follow-up, using it as cover for my increasingly frequent trips and late nights. My first stop was Clearwater Marina, at dawn. The air was cool, the water like glass, the sound of waves lapping gently against the docks almost peaceful. Almost. I needed the hull identification number, HIN, from the Sea Ray. Posing as an early morning fisherman, I strolled down Slip 47. The boat, their boat, my boat, was there, gleaming softly in the pre-dawn light. Derek, thankfully, was nowhere in sight. The HIN was clearly visible on the transom. I snapped a quick, clear photo with my phone. One more piece of the puzzle. Then, I focused on Ray, the harbor master. I'd seen him around during my initial surveillance. He was an older, weathered guy, the kind who'd seen it all. I started visiting the marina regularly, always in the early mornings, ostensibly looking for a slip for a boat I was thinking of buying. I'd bring coffee and donuts, share fishing stories, mostly fabricated, based on things I'd read. Ray, initially gruff, started to warm up. He was a good source of marina gossip. "That fella in 47, Derek," Ray said one morning, sipping the coffee I'd brought. "Bit of a strange one. Keeps asking about cheaper mooring options, out on a buoy maybe. Says he's between jobs, but flashes cash for fuel. Hasn't paid his slip fees for 2 months either. Gonna have to put a lien on the vessel soon if he don't pony up." Bingo. Derek was already struggling. My $15,000 hadn't made him a boat tycoon. It had just bought him a temporary reprieve. I also tracked down the boat's original owner, a retired dentist named Dr. Peterson, using the information Sal had inadvertently given me. I called him, explaining I was a private investigator looking into a financial matter involving Derek Walensky and a boat he'd recently purchased. Dr. Peterson was more than happy to talk. Derek, it turned out, had given him a sob story, negotiated hard on the price, and promised to pay the remaining $8,000 within 30 days. Those 30 days were almost up. "The guy's a smooth talker, I'll give him that," Dr. Peterson grumbled. "But I'm starting to think I've been had. That check he gave me for the initial small deposit, it bounced. Had to get cash from him for that part." This was perfect. Derek's foundation was crumbling. The final piece of the setup came unexpectedly. I'd installed a discrete keylogger on Sarah's laptop. A morally gray area, I knew, but I was past caring about niceties. An email popped up in her draft folder, addressed to a divorce attorney. Subject: consultation request. In it, she outlined her desire to file for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, and asked about securing her fair share of marital assets, including an expected upcoming bonus her husband was due to receive. She mentioned wanting to expedite the process, ideally filing by the end of next week. Next week? The timeline had just accelerated. She was planning to serve me with divorce papers, blindside me, and try to lay claim to even more of my money, all while I was supposedly oblivious to her affair and the boat. My quiet power move was this patient infiltration, befriending Ray, contacting Dr. Peterson, uncovering Sarah's imminent divorce plans. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was positioning my pieces on the chessboard, preparing for a checkmate they'd never see coming. The mini cliffhanger was Sarah's email, her intent to escalate her betrayal into a full-blown financial assault. She thought she was initiating the endgame. I was already several moves ahead. The Coast Guard Auxiliary Office had that distinct institutional smell: old paper, floor wax, and faint, stale coffee. The rhythmic thud of rubber stamps and the low hum of computers formed the backdrop to my mission. Armed with a meticulously organized binder, I approached the counter. Officer Patricia Williams, a woman with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor, looked up. "Good morning, officer," I said, my voice calm, betraying none of the adrenaline coursing through me. "I'm here to register a vessel." I presented my documents: the bill of sale, with Derek's name as buyer, which I was prepared to explain, a certified copy of my pay stub, clearly itemizing the $15,000 Hartwell bonus, my bank statement showing the bonus deposit and then the subsequent large cash withdrawal Sarah had made, a sworn affidavit detailing how these funds were used by my wife and her associate to purchase the boat, the photos of the boat, including the Hin, and, crucially, a newly minted bill of sale from Dr. Peterson to me for the remaining $8,000 interest in the vessel, along with proof of my payment to him. I had contacted Dr. Peterson the day before and offered to settle Derek's outstanding debt immediately in cash, in exchange for him transferring his remaining legal interest and lien directly to me. Desperate to recoup his money and wash his hands of Derek, he'd readily agreed. Officer Williams examined everything with scrutiny. "This is unusual," she commented, looking from the initial bill of sale with Derek's name to the subsequent one from Dr. Peterson to me. "I understand it appears complex, officer," I explained, choosing my words carefully. "The initial transaction was unorthodox. My estranged wife utilized marital funds, specifically my documented performance bonus, to facilitate the purchase for Mr. Walensky. However, he failed to complete full payment to the original owner, Dr. Peterson, and, to my knowledge, has not yet filed for official registration. I have since satisfied the outstanding financial obligation to Dr. Peterson, who has, in turn, transferred his full legal interest in the vessel to me. All the primary funds for this vessel originated from me." I pointed to my affidavit, the bank trails, the bonus documentation. "The vessel was, in essence, purchased with my money, and I have now cleared all encumbrances on it." She spent a long time cross-referencing databases, checking the HIN for any existing registrations or reported liens beyond what Dr. Peterson had held. Finding none, and seeing my clear financial trail and the direct bill of sale from the lien holder, she finally nodded. "Well, Mr. Hayes, your paperwork seems to be in order. Since Mr. Walensky never completed full payment to the original owner and never formally registered the vessel, and you have now cleared the lien and possess a bill of sale from the lien holder, your claim supersedes any informal claim he might have had." The sound of the official rubber stamp pressing down on my application for registration was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. The Sea Ray Sundancer, hull identification number Sarah, 6847J, 798, was now legally, unequivocally mine. My quiet power move was complete. Leveraging Jake's legal advice and Derek's irresponsibility to secure the boat through legitimate channels, turning their heist on its head. Derek thought he had a boat. He had no idea his dream was now officially registered in my name. With the official registration documents in hand, my next stop was Bob Chen's insurance office. Bob had handled all my insurance needs, home, auto, life, for years. He was thorough, dependable, and thankfully not overly inquisitive. The rustle of the new boat registration paperwork felt satisfying as I pulled it from my briefcase. "Bob, I need to add a new item to my policy, a boat." Bob raised an eyebrow, a smile playing on his lips. "Well, well, Marcus, finally taking the plunge into the nautical life, eh? What did you get?" I showed him the registration for the Sea Ray Sundancer. "Just bought her. Got a good deal." He typed the details into his system. "Nice boat. Where are you mooring her?" "Sunset Harbor, like your old ski boat used to be." This was the tricky part. "Actually, no. She's currently at Clearwater Marina, Slip 47. I'm surprising my wife. It's sort of a reconciliation gift. Plan to move it to Sunset Harbor next week, but need it insured as of today, at its current location." I hoped the slight embellishment about it being a gift for Sarah would smooth over any questions about the different marina. Bob just nodded, focused on the paperwork. "Clearwater, Slip 47, got it. Liability, comprehensive, uninsured boater? The usual?" "Everything," I said. "Full coverage. And make sure the policy lists me as the sole owner and beneficiary. No ambiguity." He looked up. "Sole owner? Usually with married couples we list both. Sarah's not a fan of boats, ironically," I lied smoothly. "This is more my thing. She's happy for me to have it, but wants no responsibility. You know how it is." I gave a conspiratorial wink. Bob chuckled. "Say no more. Sole owner Marcus Hayes. Beneficiary Marcus Hayes." He printed out the policy documents. "You're all set. She's covered. Just try not to sink it on the first day, okay?" "I'll do my best, Bob," I said, shaking his hand. As I walked out, policy in hand, I felt another layer of control click into place. The boat was mine legally, and now it was insured in my name, protected by my policy. Derek and Sarah could have their illicit rendezvous on it for now, but they were sailing on borrowed time, on a vessel that was, in every meaningful way, mine. My quiet power move was this meticulous attention to detail, securing not just ownership but also complete financial control and protection of the asset, all under the guise of marital reconciliation. The next step was to let Derek know the ground had shifted beneath his feet. I didn't want to confront him directly, not yet. I wanted him to feel the sting of discovery, the panic of realizing he'd been outmaneuvered. Jake had advised me on this. Once the registration is officially in your name, the Coast Guard database will update. If he, or the marina, runs the HIN, your name will come up as the registered owner. That should get his attention. It took 2 days. 2 days of me going to work pretending everything was normal, while Sarah was increasingly distant, making hushed phone calls, her plans for her sister's weekend becoming more elaborate. I knew she was planning her trip with Derek on my boat. Then, on the 3rd afternoon, my phone rang. An unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, a text message pinged. "Who the hell is Marcus Hayes and why is his name on my boat registration? Call me now, Derek." A slow smile spread across my face. He knew. He called again and again. I ignored each call. Then came the barrage of texts, each more unhinged than the last. "This is some kind of mistake. I bought that boat." "You some pencil pusher trying to scam me? I'll sue your ass." "Sarah, does she know about this? What did you do?" "Answer your damn phone, Hayes, or I'm coming to find you." The vibration of my phone with his increasingly threatening texts was almost a physical pleasure. The panic was palpable, even through text messages. Finally, I decided to call him back. I wanted to hear his voice, to savor his outrage. "Hayes?" he answered on the first ring, his voice tight with fury. "This is Marcus Hayes," I said calmly. "What the hell have you done? That's my boat! I paid for it!" he roared. "Actually, Mr. Walensky," I said, my tone level, almost gentle. "The boat was purchased predominantly with my money, specifically a performance bonus I earned. My wife, Sarah, appears to have misappropriated those funds to provide you with the down payment. Since you also failed to complete the purchase by paying the original owner in full, and neglected to properly register the vessel, I took the liberty of settling the outstanding debt and registering the boat in my name, as I am the legitimate source of the funds. She's legally mine." There was a stunned silence on the other end. I could almost hear him processing, the gears in his con artist brain grinding as he realized the tables had been turned. You can't do that," he finally sputtered. "Oh, I assure you I can. And I have," I replied, a hint of steel in my voice. "The Coast Guard seems to agree. Perhaps you should check your legal standing before making threats. Especially given your precarious financial situation and outstanding child support. Litigation can be very expensive." I heard him gasp. The mention of his child support had hit a nerve. "You bastard," he whispered, his voice hoarse with impotent rage. "You'll pay for this." "I believe you are the one with outstanding debts, Mr. Walensky," I said, and then I hung up. The mini cliffhanger was palpable. Derek knew. He knew he'd been played. His reaction, a mix of disbelief and fury, was exactly what I'd hoped for. My quiet power move was the calm, legally informed way I'd delivered the news, not only asserting my ownership, but also subtly referencing his other vulnerabilities, letting him know I knew more about him than he realized. He was a cornered animal, and cornered animals were dangerously unpredictable. I was counting on it. The confrontation with Sarah happened that evening. The air in our living room was thick with unspoken words, the only sound the relentless tick-tock of the grandfather clock, each tick like a countdown to an explosion. I'd waited until after our pretense of a dinner, a meal neither of us had really touched. I laid it all out on the polished wood of our dining room table. Printed copies of her emails with Derek, the photos of them at the boat shows, the screenshots of the boat purchase documents, my bank statements showing the bonus and her withdrawal, and finally, the new registration for the Sea Ray Sundancer, clearly showing Marcus Hayes as the owner. The manila folder thudded onto the table like a gavel, a final judgment. Sarah stared at the pile of evidence, her face draining of all color. Her eyes, wide and horrified, darted from the papers to my face and back again. The carefully constructed facade of the loving wife crumbled before my eyes, revealing the deceitful stranger beneath. "Marcus, I can explain," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. The vibrant, confident woman from the marina was gone, replaced by a pale, trembling mess. "Explain what, Sarah?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. "Explain the affair? Explain how you stole my bonus, money I worked myself into the ground for, to buy your lover a boat? Explain the plans to use my next bonus to fund your new life together? Or perhaps you'd like to explain the email to your divorce lawyer, planning to take me for even more?" Each question was a hammer blow. She flinched, tears welling in her eyes. It wasn't like that," she choked out. "Wasn't it?" I pushed the photos of her and Derek grinning on the boat towards her. "This looks pretty like that to me." She sank into a chair, her head in her hands. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Derek. He manipulated me." "Did he manipulate you into cashing my bonus check, Sarah? Did he manipulate you into lying to me for months? Did he manipulate you into planning to divorce me and take half of everything I've ever worked for, after you'd already stolen from me?" My voice was rising now, the cold control starting to fray. "No," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. That was me. I'm so sorry, Marcus. So sorry." I let her apologies hang in the air, hollow and meaningless against the weight of her betrayal. "Sorry doesn't cut it, Sarah," I finally said, my voice hard again. "Here's the reality. You have a choice. You end it with Derek. Completely. No contact, no explanations, no goodbyes. You give me access to your phone, your emails, everything. You go to therapy, individual and marriage counseling with me. You work, and I mean really work, to rebuild the trust you've shattered. We try to fix this, whatever this even is anymore." I paused, letting the weight of my conditions sink in. "That's option 1. Her tear-filled eyes met mine, searching, desperate. "And option 2? "Option 2, I said, my voice devoid of emotion, "is I file for divorce tomorrow morning. I present all of this evidence." I tapped the manila folder. "In court. Adultery. Financial malfeasance. Conspiracy to defraud. I will fight for every single penny, Sarah. And given what I have here, and what I know about Derek, I'm confident I'll get it. And he'll likely face charges for his part in this." The silence stretched, broken only by her ragged sobs. The grandfather clock ticked on, mercilessly. Her choice, her future, hanging in the balance, all because of a boat and a lie. My quiet power move was not in shouting or accusing, but in the calm, methodical presentation of irrefutable evidence, and the clear, stark ultimatum that left her with no room to maneuver, only to choose. It was nearly midnight when the headlights swept across our front window. A loud, aggressive engine revved, then cut out. Derek's truck. My heart hammered against my ribs, a primal surge of adrenaline. Sarah, who had been curled on the sofa, weeping, jumped at the sound, her eyes wide with fresh terror. He wouldn't, she whispered. Wouldn't he? I said grimly, already moving to the window, my phone in hand, camera ready. Derek stumbled out of his truck, clearly drunk. He lurched towards our front door, his face contorted with rage. Sarah, you in there? Get out here! And you, Hayes, you coward, come out and face me! He started pounding on the door, the wood shuddering in its frame. That's my boat, you son of a bitch! You stole my boat! I was already recording, capturing his drunken tirade, his threats, the sheer menace radiating from him. Sarah cowered behind the sofa, whimpering. You think you're so smart, Hayes? He bellowed, rattling the doorknob. You think you can just take what's mine? I'll show you. I'll take everything from you. His threats were becoming more violent, more specific. He kicked the door, then threw his shoulder against it. A crack appeared near the lock. Marcus, do something, Sarah cried. I am, I said calmly, my phone still recording his every move, his every word. This was gold. His desperation was his undoing. When he drew back his foot for another kick, clearly intending to break the door down, I dialed 911. My name is Marcus Hayes, I said clearly to the dispatcher. There's a man attempting to break into my home. He's intoxicated and making violent threats. My wife and I are inside. I gave our address. The sound of distant sirens was surprisingly quick. Derek, in his drunken rage, didn't even seem to notice until the police cruiser, lights flashing, screeched to a halt at the curb. 2 officers were out in an instant, guns drawn. Police, step away from the door with your hands in the air. Derek froze, his face a mask of disbelief, then dawning horror. He looked from the officers to our darkened window, then back again. He was trapped. His attempt to intimidate me, to reclaim his boat by force, had backfired spectacularly. His arrest for public intoxication, disorderly conduct, and attempted breaking and entering was swift and undignified. As they cuffed him and read him his rights, his eyes met mine through the window. They were filled with a desperate, hollow rage. My quiet power move was allowing Derek's own aggression to seal his fate, all while I calmly documented his criminal behavior from the safety of my home. He thought he was laying siege. He was actually walking into a trap I hadn't even needed to fully set. His relationship with Sarah, whatever it had been, was definitively over, ended not by her choice, but by his own spectacular implosion. A few days later, after Derek had been released on bail, paid by a long-suffering friend, I later found out, as Sarah had refused, I knew he'd head to the marina. He'd be desperate to see his boat, to cling to the last vestiges of his stolen dream. I wanted to be there, not to confront him directly, but to witness his final defeat. I arranged to meet Ray, the harbor master, in his office overlooking the docks. I'd already had a quiet word with him, explained that I was the new legal owner of the Sea Ray and Slip 47, and that there might be some confusion from the previous occupant. Ray, having seen my official registration and having his own grievances with Derek over unpaid fees, was more than happy to cooperate. He'd also helped me with a small logistical matter the day before. Right on cue, Derek's battered pickup roared into the marina parking lot. He stormed towards the docks, a man on a mission, his face a thundercloud. He didn't even glance at the harbor master's office. He headed straight for Slip 47, and stopped, dead in his tracks. Slip 47 was empty. The creak of the dock planks under his feet was the only sound for a moment as he stared at the vacant water where his dream boat, my boat, had been. I watched from Ray's window, a grim satisfaction settling over me. He spun around, his eyes scanning the nearby slips, a wild, panicked look on his face. He started shouting, "Where is it? Where's my boat?" Ray stepped out of the office. "Looking for something, Mr. Walensky?" Derek whirled on him. "My boat! The Sea Ray, where is it?" Ray hooked a thumb over his shoulder. "The new owner had it moved yesterday. Said he preferred a different marina. Paid up all your outstanding slip fees, too. Nice fella." The color drained from Derek's face. "New owner? I'm the owner. That's my boat." "Not according to the paperwork, son," Ray said, his voice firm. "Or the Coast Guard, or the fella who paid cash to clear your debts on it." Derek's rage seemed to visibly deflate, replaced by a crushing, overwhelming desperation. He looked from Ray to the empty slip, then back to Ray. The fight went out of him. He understood. He'd lost. He'd been played, outmaneuvered at every turn. His grand plan, his new life, all of it, had vanished like mist on the water. He stumbled towards the empty slip, his shoulders slumped. He actually collapsed onto the dock, his head in his hands. A broken man. The sight was almost pathetic. Almost. My quiet power move was not being there to gloat, but to orchestrate his final realization from a distance, having already taken the decisive action of moving the boat. The empty slip was a more eloquent statement of my victory than any words I could have uttered. The mini cliffhanger was Derek's utter collapse. The final, visual confirmation that his desperate play for my money and my wife had cost him everything. He had nothing left. The fresh ocean breeze felt different now, cleaner. The sound of rigging slapping against masts was a symphony of new beginnings, not a backdrop to betrayal. I'd moved the Sea Ray, now officially christened Second Chance, to Sunset Harbor Marina, a quieter, more reputable place far from the ghosts of Clearwater. The boat, once a symbol of deceit, was slowly transforming into my sanctuary. I was taking sailing lessons, actual lessons, learning the ropes, literally, how to read the wind, how to navigate by the stars, how to handle the vessel in choppy waters. It was challenging, invigorating. Each successfully executed tack or jibe was a small victory, washing away a little more of the bitterness. The salt spray on my face felt like a baptism, cleansing the wounds Derek and Sarah had inflicted. Sarah, to my surprise, had chosen option 1. The night of the confrontation, after Derek's arrest, she had been utterly broken, but also, perhaps for the first time in months, completely honest. She'd handed over her phone, her passwords, without hesitation. She'd made the appointment with a therapist the very next day. She seemed to understand the depth of her betrayal and the long, arduous path to even a sliver of redemption. Today, she was joining me for our first sail together on the Second Chance. It wasn't a celebration, not yet. It was a tentative step, a fragile exploration of whether there was anything left to salvage. She was quiet, subdued, but she was here. As I expertly guided the boat out of the harbor, the engine humming smoothly, I felt a sense of command, not just of the vessel, but of my life. My quiet power move was this: taking the instrument of my betrayal and transforming it into a tool for my own healing and, potentially, the rebuilding of something new. The warmth of Sarah's hand in mine was hesitant, almost shy, as we watched the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and purple. We'd been sailing for hours, mostly in comfortable silence. She hadn't tried to make excuses, hadn't pleaded for forgiveness. Instead, she'd listened as I talked, really talked, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, about the betrayal, the anger, the pain. And she'd just nodded, her eyes filled with a sorrow that finally seemed genuine. She'd started individual therapy, and we'd had our first 2 sessions of marriage counseling. The counselor, a no-nonsense woman named Dr. Evans, had made it clear that rebuilding trust would be a marathon, not a sprint. Sarah seemed committed. She'd cut all ties with Derek, Blocked his number, his social media, changed her own number just in case. She was transparent to a fault, sharing her schedule, her whereabouts, even her innermost thoughts from her therapy sessions. It wasn't easy. There were days I looked at her, and all I could see was her laughing with Derek at the marina. Days when the anger and suspicion were a palpable weight between us. But there were also moments, like this one, watching the sunset, the shared experience of the sea and the sky, where a flicker of the old connection, the woman I had loved, peeked through. The boat registration remained solely in my name. That was non-negotiable, a quiet but firm boundary. Dr. Evans had supported this, explaining that tangible demonstrations of change were crucial, but so was my own sense of security and agency. Sarah understood. She was working at a local bookstore now, contributing to the household, taking small, deliberate steps to prove she was no longer the person who had conspired to steal my future. My quiet power move was in this controlled mercy, this willingness to explore forgiveness while maintaining my strength and clear boundaries, demonstrating that redemption was her responsibility, not my obligation. Derek Walensky, predictably, continued his downward spiral. After his arrest, his world had imploded. The friend who'd bailed him out wanted nothing more to do with him. His landlord, already fed up with late rent payments, evicted him. He'd apparently tried to get a job at a few construction sites, but his reputation, or lack thereof, preceded him. A few weeks after the Marina showdown, I received a call from Jake. "Guess who just got served?" he said, a cheerful lilt in his voice. Derek's first ex-wife, the one he owed over $30,000 in child support, had finally tracked him down. Her lawyer, a bulldog of a woman, had found him working for cash at a car wash in Tampa. His wages were being garnished, and the court was considering jail time for his continued evasion. The final communication I had from Derek was a voicemail, left from a blocked number. His voice was almost unrecognizable. No bluster, no threats, just a broken, pleading tone. "Hayes, Marcus, please, man, I messed up. I know I messed up bad, but Sarah. She told me things, man. Made it sound like, can we just talk? Just give me a chance to explain my side. Please, I got nothing left." I listened to it once, a strange mix of pity and revulsion churning in my stomach. Then, I deleted the message without responding, without even listening to the end. His explanations, his pleas, they were irrelevant. He was a con artist who'd run out of victims. My final power move regarding Derek was this: complete and utter indifference. He was no longer a factor in my life, not even worthy of a response. He had simply disappeared from my radar. 1 year later, the hum of the fluorescent lights in my new, larger office was a familiar sound. Janet walked in, a wide smile on her face. "Marcus, the quarterly numbers are in. Hartwell is exceeding all projections. The partners have authorized another performance bonus. This one's for $25,000. She handed me the check. This time, things were different. The money went into a separate account, one Sarah didn't have access to, as per the terms of the post-nuptial agreement Jake had drafted for us. Our marriage, surprisingly, had survived. It was different, scarred, but stronger in some ways, rebuilt on a foundation of brutal honesty and painstaking effort. Sarah was genuinely thrilled about the bonus, her support unwavering and her pride in me palpable. She'd learned the devastating cost of her choices. That weekend, we took the second chance out for an overnight trip to a secluded cove. As we anchored, the setting sun turning the water to liquid gold, Sarah leaned her head on my shoulder. "Thank you, Marcus," she whispered, for the second chance. I looked at her, at the genuine remorse and newfound strength in her eyes. The anger had faded, replaced by a cautious optimism. The boat, once a symbol of her betrayal, was now a testament to our resilience, our ability to navigate the storm and find calmer waters. Derek's greed, his ambition to own a boat he couldn't afford, had inadvertently given me the boat of my dreams, a renewed sense of self, and, ironically, a marriage that had been forced to confront its deepest flaws and emerge, changed but intact. The second chance rocked gently at her mooring, her hull gleaming in the fading light, registered forever in the name of the man who had truly earned her, in every sense of the word. My final quiet power move wasn't just about reclaiming an asset. It was about rebuilding an empire from the ashes of betrayal, stronger and wiser than before.